Okay, let's look at, this is a composition function, and they want me to find f of g of x. Now, I tend to write these to look like this, of f of g of x, because it kind of helps me, because I can see that g of x is the square root of x, so I can plug that in here. And then everywhere that I see an x, I'm going to just simply plug in square root of x. So I'm going to get 9. Where you see an x is going to be square root of x plus 7. And that gives me my f of g of x. Now I do the same thing, that it wants me to find g of f of x. And so once again, I rewrite it as g of f of x. And so g, what is f of x? 9x plus 7. Now I use my g of x, which is the square root, and where you see x, you plug in 9x plus 7. Again, I just find this an easier way. It's more understandable to me to be able to plug in how to actually enter in these values. Now it's asking me what is the domain of f of g, which is this one. So what you look at is you look here, and what would bother this function, and what I mean by what are the good x values? Well, remember, you can't take the square root of a negative number. So the only thing that's really affected here is, and that's kind of what I say, the domain, good x values. That means it is okay to plug in these values. So you can't take the square root of a negative number, but you can take the square root of 0, right? Because the square root of 0 is 0. So to me, this domain, would equal 0. So you use a square bracket, and then anything bigger than that. So the square bracket means that it actually could equal this number. And you might ask, well, why does the infinity have a parentheses? Well, can you ever reach infinity? No. And so that's the infinity always has a parentheses. All right, now it wants the domain of g of f. So that's this one. So remember, I said the only thing that bothers a square root is if this goes negative. So in math terms, that means 9x plus 7 has to be greater than or equal to 0. That's all that means, right? You have to have a number greater than or equal to 0. So I could actually solve this. I could move the 7 to this side, divide by 9. And I mean, even try this. So if I go up here and I plug in 9 times negative 7 over 9 plus 7, the 9s are going to cancel. Negative 7 plus 7. Oh, that works. Square root of 0. So this tells me I can use any number, negative 7/9, all the way up to infinity. Once again, I can actually use the negative 7/9. And then, as I mentioned before, the infinity has the parentheses. So just always remember with domains, what can you plug in for x that's not going to bother it? The only time domains are bothered are with square roots and division, because you don't want to divide by 0.